Malik was a man with a quiet spirit and strong hands. He owned a very small restaurant in the middle of a noisy street. The sign above his door was old and a little faded, but it carried his dream. The name of the place was Malik's Table, and even though the tables inside were few and the chairs often scratched, he kept them clean and shining. Every morning, Malik opened the doors before the sun rose. He swept the floor, wiped the tables, and warmed the little stove that had been with him since the first day. The smell of spices and fresh bread always filled the air. For Malik, this restaurant was not only a business. It was a piece of his heart. But life was not kind to him. There were days when only 2 or 3 customers came. Some days, nobody walked in at all. Still, he stood behind the counter with hope. He had built the place with his savings from many years of hard work in other kitchens, washing dishes, cleaning floors, and carrying heavy pots. This was his chance to create something of his own. Even with all the struggles, Malik never lost his faith. He believed that food had the power to heal. A full stomach, he often whispered to himself, can give someone courage again. One evening, as the sky turned gray and the streets began to quiet, Malik sat alone inside his restaurant. He looked at the empty chairs and thought about the bills waiting on his desk at home. The weight of it all pressed on his chest. He wondered if the dream he loved so much was slowly slipping away. Just as he was about to close for the night, he noticed a figure outside the glass window. An old man sat on the cold pavement near the doorway. His coat was torn at the shoulder, his shoes had holes, and his hair was messy and gray. People passed by him without looking, rushing home with their bags and coats. The old man did not ask for anything. He only sat there with tired eyes and a weak body. Malik stood still, watching him. His heart stirred. He knew the feeling of being ignored, the feeling of being invisible in a busy world. Without thinking much, Malik walked out into the chilly air. "Sir," Malik said gently, "are you hungry?" The old man lifted his head slowly, as if he had forgotten how to answer such a question. His voice was soft and cracked. "Yes, but I have no money." Malik gave a small smile, the kind that carried warmth. "You don't need money tonight. Please, come inside." The old man looked at him in disbelief. For a moment, it seemed like he might refuse out of pride or fear. But Malik placed a steady hand on his arm and guided him through the door. Inside the restaurant, Malik pulled out a chair close to the stove. The old man lowered himself carefully, shivering as if the cold had sunk deep into his bones. Malik went into the kitchen without another word. He filled a bowl with hot soup, placed fresh bread on a plate, and served rice with beans, the kind of simple meal that carried love in every bite. He set the food in front of the man and stepped back. The old man stared at the food as if it was the first real meal he had seen in a long time. His eyes filled with tears. He picked up the spoon slowly, almost shaking, and began to eat. Each spoonful seemed to give him life again. Malik did not interrupt. He simply watched from behind the counter, his heart heavy yet peaceful. For Malik, it was not about money. It was about dignity. He knew hunger too well. He had seen days when he worked in hot kitchens but could not afford a meal for himself. Helping someone else now felt like returning kindness to the world. When the old man finished the last piece of bread, he leaned back in the chair, his face tired but calm. "Thank you," he whispered. "You may never know what this means." Malik nodded. "It's only food," he said quietly. But inside, he felt something stir, something larger than the small restaurant around him. That night, As Malik closed the door and turned off the lights, he carried the image of the old man's grateful eyes in his mind. He did not know why, but he sensed that this meeting was not an accident. He could not imagine that this one act of kindness would set a chain of events in motion, events that would soon change his life forever. The next morning, Malik woke up early as usual. He prepared the kitchen, kneaded the dough for bread, and chopped vegetables with steady hands. But his mind kept returning to the old man from the night before. He wondered if the man had found shelter or if he was still wandering the streets with the cold biting at his skin. All day, Malik kept looking out the window, hoping to see him again. But hours passed, and no familiar figure appeared. Business was slow that day. Only a few customers walked in, mostly workers who bought cheap meals before rushing back to their jobs. By evening, Malik's earnings barely covered the cost of the ingredients he had used. Just as he began to close, the sound of slow footsteps reached the doorway. Malik looked up and saw the same old man standing there. His clothes were the same, his body weak, but his eyes carried a different light now, something softer, almost hopeful. "You came back," Malik said with a small smile. The man nodded. "I did not know where else to go. I wanted to thank you again." "You don't need to thank me," Malik replied, opening the door wider. "Come, sit down. You look tired." The old man sat at the same table as before, near the warmth of the stove. Malik brought him another bowl of soup, this time with a piece of roasted chicken and rice. The man ate slowly, carefully, as though he did not want to waste even a single grain of rice. When he finished, he placed the spoon down gently and folded his hands. "My name is Samuel," he said softly. Malik nodded, happy to finally know the stranger's name. "I'm Malik." For a while, they sat in silence. Then Samuel spoke again, his voice filled with memory. "I was not always like this, Malik. Once, I had a home. I had work. I even had a family. But life," he paused, his eyes staring at the table. "Life can be cruel. I lost everything slowly, and when I realized, there was nothing left." Malik listened carefully. He did not interrupt, because he knew that sometimes people needed to release the weight they carried. Samuel's story was not new to him. Many people in the city struggled and lost their way. Still, hearing it directly from Samuel's lips filled him with deep compassion. "Samuel," Malik said gently, "as long as I have food in my kitchen, you will never go hungry again." Samuel's eyes grew wet. He bowed his head, his voice trembling. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Malik leaned back, his hands resting on the counter. "Because I know what hunger feels like. And because kindness is the only thing that multiplies when you give it away." Samuel sat quietly, moved by the words. For the first time in many years, he felt seen. That night, when Malik finally closed the restaurant, Samuel helped him stack the chairs and wipe the tables. He worked slowly, his body still weak, but he wanted to give something back. Malik did not stop him. Instead, he smiled and allowed Samuel to help, feeling that the restaurant no longer felt so empty with another pair of hands inside. Over the next few days, Samuel returned each evening. Malik gave him meals, and Samuel, in return, swept the floors, washed dishes, and polished the counter. They did not speak much at first, but a quiet friendship began to grow between them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the buildings, Samuel surprised Malik with a question. "Do you believe in second chances?" Malik paused, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Yes," he said after a moment. I believe every sunrise is a second chance. Why do you ask? Samuel looked at him carefully, his eyes thoughtful. Because I think your kindness has given me one. Malik did not know how to respond. He only nodded, feeling a warmth rise in his chest. He had always believed his little restaurant was too small to matter in the world. But perhaps, in Samuel's life, it mattered more than he could imagine. Days turned into weeks, and slowly Samuel began to change. His steps grew steadier, his back straighter. He still wore the same worn coat, but inside his heart, a new hope began to live. Customers noticed him too. Some asked if he worked there. Malik would smile and say, "He's my friend, and yes, he helps me." For Samuel, it was more than help. It was dignity. It was a reminder that he could still be useful, still be part of something meaningful. And though Malik did not realize it yet, Samuel was carrying a secret. A secret that would soon unfold in a way neither of them expected, a secret that would change Malik's life forever. The bond between Malik and Samuel grew stronger with each passing day. What began as a simple act of kindness had slowly turned into something like family. Malik had always worked alone, but now Samuel's quiet presence made the restaurant feel alive in a new way. Every morning, Malik still opened the doors before the sun, but in the evenings Samuel was there, waiting at the corner like a loyal friend. Together, they cleaned, cooked, and sometimes laughed over small things. Malik found comfort in Samuel's wisdom, and Samuel found dignity in Malik's trust. But behind Samuel's gentle smile and soft words, there was something more, a secret he carried in silence. One evening, after the last customer left, Malik poured tea for both of them. The restaurant was quiet, the only sound the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Samuel sipped slowly, his hands steady now compared to the first night Malik had seen him. "You have given me more than food, Malik," Samuel said. His voice was calm but carried weight. "You've given me back a piece of myself." Malik smiled. "We all lose ourselves sometimes. Maybe life is about finding pieces again, one by one." Samuel looked at him with eyes that seemed to search deeper. He wanted to say something more, but he stopped himself. Instead, he helped Malik wash the cups and wished him good night. Yet that night, Malik could not sleep. Samuel's words lingered in his mind. He wondered what kind of past Samuel had lived. Who was he before life took everything away? Malik believed every man had a story, and Samuel's story was still hidden in the shadows. The answer began to reveal itself one afternoon. A well-dressed man entered the restaurant. He wore a dark coat, carried a leather bag, and walked with the confidence of someone used to being respected. Malik welcomed him warmly, offering the day's special chicken stew with rice. The man sat near the window, but when Samuel came from the back carrying plates, the man's eyes widened. He dropped his spoon, staring at Samuel as if he had seen a ghost. "Samuel," the man whispered. Samuel froze, the plates trembling in his hands. For a long moment, the two men simply looked at each other. Then Samuel lowered his eyes and placed the plates on the counter. He turned away quickly, as though he wanted to escape. The customer stood up, walking toward him. "It is you. I thought you were gone." Malik watched the scene with surprise. He had never seen Samuel look so unsettled. The old man's calmness cracked, replaced by shame and nervousness. "Please," Samuel said in a low voice. "Not here." The well-dressed man hesitated, then nodded. He paid for his meal and left quietly, but not before giving Malik a curious glance, as if to say, "You have no idea who this man really is." After the door closed, Malik looked at Samuel. "Do you know him?" Samuel sighed, his shoulders heavy. "Yes. Once, a long time ago." Malik did not push for answers. He could see that Samuel was not ready to share. Still, his curiosity grew. Who was Samuel before he became a man without a home? That night, Samuel stayed longer than usual. As they cleaned the tables together, he finally spoke again. "Malik, sometimes people fall, not because they are weak, but because life gives them storms too heavy to carry. I was once in a place of respect. I had people who knew my name, who listened when I spoke. But mistakes and losses can turn any man into a stranger on the street." Malik placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder. "You don't have to explain until you are ready. To me, you are Samuel, my friend. That is enough." Samuel's eyes softened with gratitude, but inside he knew the truth could not stay hidden forever. The days continued as usual, with Malik serving meals and Samuel helping quietly. Customers grew used to seeing Samuel in the restaurant. Some even smiled at him, and he smiled back, shy but warm. Malik noticed the change Samuel was beginning to heal. But one evening, just as they were closing, a black car stopped outside. Two men stepped out, dressed in suits. They looked serious, their eyes scanning the small restaurant. Malik felt a shiver of unease. When the men entered, their eyes went straight to Samuel. One of them spoke firmly. "Sir, we've been looking for you." Samuel's face turned pale. Malik looked between them, confused. He had never seen Samuel so shaken. The men did not look cruel, but their presence carried authority. Malik's heart raced. Who exactly was Samuel? Why were these men searching for him? Samuel stood still, his hands trembling slightly. "I knew this day would come," he whispered. Malik realized then that the old man he had fed on that cold night was carrying a story far bigger than he had ever imagined. A story that was about to change not only Samuel's life but his own. The small restaurant felt heavy with silence. Malik stood frozen near the counter, while the two men in suits waited patiently for Samuel to respond. Their voices had not been harsh, but their presence filled the room with tension. Samuel lowered his eyes, his hands trembling slightly. Malik had never seen him so unsettled. For days, Samuel had worked calmly, sweeping floors and washing dishes, speaking with gentle wisdom. But now, he looked like a man cornered by shadows from the past. Finally, Samuel spoke in a low voice. "I thought you would never find me." The taller man nodded. "It took time. But the people who cared about you never stopped searching." Malik's heart raced. He could no longer stay silent. "Samuel," he said carefully, "who are these men? What is happening?" Samuel turned toward Malik, his tired eyes filled with both sorrow and shame. "There is something I never told you. Something I have been hiding." The shorter man stepped forward, his tone softer. "Perhaps it is better if he explains. But know this, Malik, you were kind to someone who was once respected by many." Samuel sat down slowly, as though his legs could no longer hold him. Malik pulled out a chair beside him. The two men remained standing, waiting. Taking a deep breath, Samuel began his story. "Years ago," he said, his voice steadying with each word, "I was not a homeless man. I was a teacher. I worked in schools, guiding children who had no fathers, no mothers, or no one to care for them. I believed education could give them light, the same way food gives strength. For many years, that was my purpose. Malik listened with wide eyes. The image of Samuel sweeping floors seemed far away from the picture of a respected teacher shaping young lives. But, Samuel continued, life is never simple. I lost my wife to sickness, and soon after, I lost my only child in an accident. My world crumbled. I stopped teaching, I stopped caring, and I walked away from everything. One loss after another broke me until I no longer recognized myself. I left the city, lived on the streets, and carried my grief alone. I thought I had no reason to return. His voice cracked as he spoke, but he held on, not hiding his pain anymore. These men, he gestured toward the suits, worked for an old school where I once taught. They searched for me because some of my students never forgot me. They wanted me to return. But I ran from them, too ashamed of the man I had become. Malik felt his chest tighten. He had seen Samuel's kindness in small actions, how he wiped tables with care, how he greeted customers with a soft smile. And now he realized this kindness came from a man who had once shaped hundreds of young hearts. One of the suited men stepped forward. Mr. Samuel, the board still holds respect for you. They believe your story is not over. They want you to guide again, to share your wisdom. You are not forgotten. Samuel shook his head. I am too broken. I have nothing left to give. Malik finally spoke, his voice firm. That's not true, Samuel. I have seen you. You gave me strength when my restaurant was empty and my heart was heavy. You helped me without asking for anything. You are not broken, you are still a teacher, only in another way. The words hit Samuel deeply. He turned to Malik, his eyes wet with emotion. Do you really believe that? I do, Malik replied. Every sunrise is a second chance. You told me that once, remember. The two men in suits remained silent, letting the moment pass between them. Samuel bowed his head, struggling with the weight of choice. He had lived in shadows for so long, but here was Malik, reminding him that even broken lives could still shine. That night, after the men left, Malik and Samuel sat together in the quiet restaurant. Malik, Samuel said, his voice gentle, when you gave me food, I thought it was just a meal. But now I see it was a door back into life. You gave me dignity when I had lost it. Perhaps I should not keep running. Malik placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. Then don't. Let the world see the man I have seen, the man who still carries wisdom. For the first time in years, Samuel allowed a small smile to form. It was weak, but it was real. That night, as Malik locked the door, he knew the restaurant would never be the same. Feeding Samuel on that cold evening had been more than charity. It had been destiny. And though neither of them could see the future, Malik sensed that Samuel's return to the world would not only change Samuel's life but would soon bring blessings to his own. The next few days felt different inside Malik's small restaurant. Something had shifted between him and Samuel. The air carried more than the smell of spices and fresh bread, it carried hope. Samuel, though still quiet, looked stronger. His steps were steady, his eyes brighter. The heavy shadow that had followed him for years was beginning to lift. Malik noticed how even customers reacted differently to Samuel now. When he greeted them politely, they smiled back, sensing a dignity in him that had once been hidden. One evening, after a long day, Malik asked gently, Samuel, what will you do now? The men in suits want you to return. Do you feel ready? Samuel sat at the familiar table near the stove. He thought for a long moment before answering. Part of me is afraid. I spent so many years in silence, Malik. I don't know if I still have the strength to guide others. Malik leaned forward. Strength is not about never falling. It's about rising again, even after the hardest fall. I see that strength in you. Samuel's eyes softened. He did not reply at once, but Malik could see that his words had touched him. The following day brought an unexpected surprise. A group of 3 young men entered the restaurant. They wore simple clothes, but their faces were filled with recognition as soon as they saw Samuel. "Teacher Samuel," one of them asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Samuel looked up, startled. "Yes." The young man's face broke into a wide smile. "It is you. We thought you were gone forever." The others rushed closer, their eyes shining with respect. They told Malik how Samuel had once been their teacher, how his words had guided them when they were children with little hope. One of them said, "You always told us we could rise, even if we were poor. You gave us courage. Because of you, I finished school. Because of you, I never gave up." Samuel's eyes grew wet. He covered his face with his hand, overwhelmed. For so long he had believed he was forgotten. Yet here were his students, grown now, standing before him with gratitude. Malik watched the scene with a quiet smile. He realized that Samuel's story was already changing the spirit of the restaurant. The small place on the corner was no longer just about food, it was becoming a place of healing and memory. The young men stayed for dinner, sharing stories of their school days. Customers who came in listened with interest, moved by the respect they showed to Samuel. That night, the restaurant was full of laughter, something Malik had not heard in a long time. After they left, Samuel turned to Malik. "Do you see? I thought my life was lost. But these young men still carry my words. Maybe I was wrong to think I had nothing left to give." Malik nodded. "The seeds you planted long ago are still growing. Now it's time for you to plant more." From that day, Samuel became more than just a helper in Malik's restaurant. Customers began to sit with him, asking for advice or simply enjoying his company. He spoke gently, often sharing small lessons about patience, courage, and kindness. People left not only with full stomachs but also with lighter hearts. One afternoon, a woman came in with her son. She ordered food but asked if Samuel was really the same teacher she had once heard of. When Samuel nodded, her face lit up. "My brother was one of your students," she said. "He always said your words gave him hope. Please, don't disappear again. The world needs you." Samuel sat quietly after she left, his eyes shining. "Malik," he whispered, "maybe the world is giving me another chance." Malik smiled. "Not maybe, Samuel. It is." The restaurant slowly grew busier. Word spread that Malik's table was not just a place to eat, but a place where an old teacher shared wisdom and kindness. People came not only for food but also for comfort. Malik noticed the change in his earnings too. The money was still modest, but more than before. The empty nights became rare, and laughter often filled the small room. He realized that feeding Samuel had not only changed Samuel's life, it was also changing his own dream. One night, as they closed the restaurant, Samuel spoke softly. "Malik, I feel alive again. But I know my journey is not finished. The men who came for me, perhaps I should return. Not to hide, but to serve again." Malik looked at him with pride. "If that is what your heart says, then follow it. but remember, this place will always be your home. You are not alone anymore." Samuel placed a hand over his heart. "And you, Malik, will always be the reason I found my way back." Neither of them could see it clearly yet, but this turning point was preparing them for something even greater, something that would soon transform the little restaurant in ways neither man had imagined. The days in Malik's table grew brighter. Customers came more often, not only for food but also for the warmth that filled the little restaurant. Samuel, once a tired old man sitting outside in the cold, was now a quiet guide for many. His presence gave the place a new life. Still, Samuel's heart carried a question that would not leave him. Each night, after helping Malik close, he thought about the men in suits who had come searching for him. He thought about his students who remembered him, the young men who had thanked him with shining eyes. Deep inside, he wondered if it was time to step into the light fully, instead of hiding in Malik's shadow. One evening, as the chairs were stacked and the lights dimmed, Samuel finally spoke what had been weighing on his mind. "Malik," he said softly, "I think I am ready to go back." Malik looked up from wiping the counter. "Back where?" "To teaching," Samuel replied. His voice trembled slightly, but his eyes carried determination. "For years I believed my story was over. But you showed me it is not. The world gave me a second chance, and I must not waste it." Malik placed the cloth down and walked closer. "Samuel, I knew this day would come. And I am proud of you. But remember, you are not leaving this place behind. You are part of it now, no matter where you go." Samuel smiled weakly. "You gave me food when I had nothing. You gave me respect when I felt worthless. Because of you, I have courage again. I will carry that with me." The very next morning, the same men in suits returned. This time, Samuel did not hide or look ashamed. He welcomed them, shaking their hands firmly. Malik stood beside him, watching with pride. The men explained that the city wanted Samuel to join a community program, one designed to help children from poor neighborhoods. His experience as a teacher was needed, and his wisdom could light paths for many who were lost. Samuel listened carefully, then nodded. "Yes. I will serve again." The men smiled. One of them turned to Malik. "You may not realize it, but you saved this man. Without you, we may never have found him." Malik lowered his eyes, humble as always. "I only gave him a meal. The rest was already inside him." That evening, Samuel and Malik sat together for one last quiet dinner before Samuel's new journey. The restaurant was closed, the air filled with the smell of bread baking for the next day. "I am afraid, Malik," Samuel admitted. "What if I fail again? What if the weight is too heavy?" Malik reached across the table. "Failure is not the end, Samuel. It is only a step. And you will not walk alone this time. You have your students, the program, and me. Whenever you need strength, remember this place." Tears gathered in Samuel's eyes. "I never thought a poor restaurant owner would be my savior." Malik shook his head. "No, Samuel. We saved each other." The next week, Samuel began his work with the community program. Children gathered in a small hall, some restless, some shy, but all curious about the old man who stood before them. Samuel's voice, though aged, carried wisdom and warmth. He spoke to them not as someone above them but as someone who understood their struggles. "Life will give you storms," he told them. "But storms can shape strong trees. Do not let hardship steal your hope." The children listened, their eyes wide. Some smiled, some nodded, and slowly the room filled with a sense of calm and courage. Meanwhile, Malik's restaurant continued to grow. The story of how he had fed an old homeless man spread through the community. People admired his kindness, and many came to support his business. Some nights, the restaurant was full, and Malik worked with joy, remembering the days when the chairs sat empty. Samuel often returned after his sessions with the children. He would sit at his old table near the stove, sharing stories of the young lives he was guiding. Malik listened with pride, happy to see his friend living again with purpose. One night, Samuel said, "Do you know what I tell the children, Malik? I tell them about a man who fed me when I had nothing. I tell them that kindness can save lives." Malik's eyes softened. "Samuel, you are the proof of that. And now, you are passing it forward." Together, they laughed quietly, two men who had found family in each other. What neither of them realized was that Samuel's return to teaching, and Malik's act of kindness, were weaving a story that would spread far beyond their little corner. A story that would soon bring change in ways they could not yet imagine. Months passed, and the little restaurant Malik owned had turned into more than just a place to eat. It had become a symbol of hope in the community. People came not only for food but also to feel the warmth and kindness that surrounded the place. The story of the homeless man, Samuel, who found a new life after Malik fed him, had quietly spread through the city. Samuel was now busy with his work in the community program. Every morning, he spoke to children who needed guidance, and every evening, he found himself back at Malik's table, sharing stories of their progress. He was no longer the lonely man who once sat in the cold. His voice had purpose again, and his eyes carried light. But change was not only happening for Samuel. Malik's life was shifting too. The kindness he showed that one cold evening had opened doors he never imagined. Local newspapers began writing about him. "Restaurant owner with a big heart" became a headline that touched many people. Soon, people who had never stepped into his restaurant before came, wanting to meet the man behind the story. Malik remained humble. To him, he was still the same man who woke up early to cook and clean the tables late at night. He did not see himself as special. But others did. They admired how a poor man, who had little himself, gave so much to someone who had nothing. One evening, a group of city leaders visited the restaurant. They sat down with Malik and Samuel after closing hours. "We want to create a program," one of them explained, "to support struggling families and provide meals for the homeless. We would like your restaurant to be the center of this program." Malik froze, unsure if he had heard correctly. "My restaurant? But it is small, and I don't have much money." The leader smiled. "You gave the world something greater than money. You gave it an example. We will provide the funds and support. What we need is your heart, your leadership, and your story." Malik looked at Samuel, who nodded with a proud smile. Tears filled Malik's eyes as he whispered, "If this is a way to serve more people, then yes, I will do it." From that day, Malik's table became more than a business. It became a community kitchen where no one was turned away. Families who could not afford food came and found meals waiting. Homeless people no longer felt invisible when they walked through the door. Volunteers joined, inspired by Malik's kindness. Samuel helped too. Between teaching children, he guided the volunteers, speaking to them about compassion and resilience. He often said, "One meal saved me. Imagine what thousands of meals can do for others." The restaurant grew busier, but Malik's heart remained the same. He still greeted every person with a smile, still cooked with his own hands, and still found joy in serving. Yet now, when he looked around, he saw something greater: a family built from strangers, united by kindness. One winter evening, much like the one when Samuel had first walked in, the restaurant was filled with laughter and chatter. Children from the community program sat at one table, families shared food at another, and old friends reunited in the warmth of the small place. Samuel stood near the door, watching with pride. He turned to Malik. "Do you see this? You thought you were only helping me. But you planted a seed, Malik, and now it has grown into a tree with many branches." Malik chuckled softly. "And you, Samuel, are the roots. You gave me strength when I doubted myself. We built this together." That night, after everyone left, Samuel sat quietly with Malik. "My friend," he said, his voice gentle, "you changed my life. You reminded me that even in the darkest days, one act of kindness can bring back hope. I will carry that lesson until my last breath." Malik smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you changed mine. You showed me that even when we feel small, we can make a big difference. Together, we found purpose." The two men sat in silence for a while, listening to the soft hum of the city outside. The restaurant was dark except for one small light above the counter. Yet in that moment, they felt surrounded by brightness, the brightness of lives healed, futures changed, and hope restored. As time went on, the story of Malik and Samuel continued to inspire. Schools told children about it, newspapers shared it, and people in other cities began creating similar programs. The simple act of feeding one homeless man had become a movement of compassion. And through it all, Malik never forgot the night when Samuel first walked into his restaurant, tired, cold, and hungry. That single choice to offer food instead of turning him away became the moment that changed everything. It changed Samuel's life. It changed Malik's life. And it changed the lives of countless others who would forever be touched by their story.